Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be planting 4 blueberries from the Southern Living plant collection. I've got a series of videos on my channel about picking the right blueberry varieties for your area, how to plant them, how to prune them, when to fertilize them, and all those kinds of things, all those kinds of details, kind of a deeper dive. I think it's 4 videos. I'll link that series of videos up here in the corner if you're watching on YouTube, and you can learn how to go about picking the right varieties for your area. The varieties that I'm using are rabbit eye blueberries, and they tend to work probably as a rule in zone 7 and 8, somewhere in there. If you're in much colder areas, they're northern high bush varieties that you typically would use. And now we have southern high bush varieties that tend to work, or low chill blueberries that don't need a lot of winter, that people can do all the way down to North Florida and in California and that kind of thing. So it is important that you know that the type of blueberry that you're buying is appropriate for your area. You can probably check with your county extension agent and find that information out, and they'll probably have a list. Or if there's a university close to you that has a horticulture program, they likely have a website that has the list of blueberries that would be appropriate for your area. They do like acid soils. This is very important. They're heavy iron feeders, and they prefer iron is readily available when the pH is pretty low, and they prefer a pH between 4.5 and 5.5. My pH is 6, which we would consider acid, but not quite as low as a blueberry would like. I think they'll do okay regardless, but 6 would be fine, but optimally it would be even lower. You can look at ways to lower your pH. The way I'm going to go about lowering mine a little more is I'm actually going to mix in a lot of pine bark soil conditioner. If you pull these plants out of the container, you'll see that they're grown in a bark mix. And so these bags, which I just got at Lowe's, this is just ground up pine bark right here. And I'm going to use lots of it, more than you've ever seen me use if you've watched any of my other videos. And basically I'm going to grow these in maybe 50% soil, my native soil, and 50% bark. And that will work great. If the pine bark's unavailable to you, you can use peat moss for this same operation. This soil along the driveway here is a little bit sandy. Soil has washed in here over the years, and so there's a bit of a sand silt on top of a clay mix. I'm going to leave them up just a little bit. They don't like clay soils all that much, so knowing that, like I say, I'll mound them up a little bit. I'm going to mix in, like I say, tons of pine bark, and then I'm going to mulch this area with triple shredded hardwood, and that's the way I'm going to go about this. I'll fertilize them in the late winter with a slow release fertilizer. I'll just use an organic fertilizer at that time, and I think that's all they'll need to thrive here. So let's get started. So I'll go over the process one time here, talking through it. This soil right here, like I say, is a weird sand clay mix because of how much is washed into this area. I've actually planted some bulbs here in front of where these are, so they're gonna have daffodils growing around them before they leaf out in the spring. But I'm gonna dig a pretty large hole here. This is only a 2-gallon pot, but I'm gonna dig a hole that's big enough for a 5 or a 7-gallon plant probably. It's easy digging here. I don't have this luxury in the rest of the yard. And I've tested this pH. It's right around 6. This bark is going to help lower that a little bit. Okay. So I've dug a pretty big hole here. I'm going to basically use a half a bag of pine bark soil conditioner. If I was using peat moss, I'd use a similar amount. But this is a lot of material here. Dump some in the hole and all around here. Then I'm going to come in here and mix this in with the soil that's in the hole here. Okay. There we go. A little bit more. Okay. So I've created a nice little mix of bark and soil down at the bottom. Good spot for, make sure the soil will drain pretty well. When blueberries have super fibrous root systems, and they're almost always a well-established plant is going to look like this when you pull it out. Azaleas are this way. There's a lot of plants that have this kind of fibrous root system. You can take a knife and just cut from the top to the bottom several times. Around here, typically I'll use, I'll use a shovel like this, and I'll cut them. It seems mean, but it's necessary to get these roots heading outward. And it's really, with these fibrous root systems like this, this is just a better way to do it. It's just cut them off, just like that. And that'll get them headed out in the right direction. Had a lot of success with this technique over the years. You can go in here and rough them up a little bit as well, just like that. But cutting it allowed me to rough it up there a little more easily. Anyway, okay, so there you go. I'm gonna set them in the hole, and then I can kind of use my shovel here to make sure that it's up above the grade some. I'd actually like to raise that up just a little bit more. So I'll pull them out, and put in another scoop or two of this soil mix, just like this, just like that. Just blend that in. You can step on this a little bit because it'll settle under your plants, and your plants will sink some if you don't do that. But ultimately here, I haven't dug that deep of a hole. I mean, I'm not, there we go, right there. I'm happy with that. It's gonna be sitting up a couple inches above that original grade. And then coming in here and just mixing this bark and pine bark, this soil and pine bark together like this, and then coming back in and filling around it, just like that. Then I'll just kind of stomp around it. The last inch or two of this root ball will actually just be covered up by mulch. And there's my technique for planting a blueberry bush right there. Lots of pine bark soil conditioner. Peat moss would work. Elevate it some, break up the roots, and then again, I'll mulch in a minute and I'll show you that. So there's my process for planting blueberries. If you can find pine bark soil conditioner, it's great for incorporating into the soil. You really do need to know your pH of your soil. You need to know whether you need to adjust it. If your pH is neutral or higher, it probably is a good idea to, if you want to grow blueberries, to think about growing them in containers. And that's one of the videos that's in that series of videos I made about blueberries. One of them is entirely about growing them in containers if you want to, if you'd rather go about it that way rather than trying to make giant adjustments to your soil. I planted these up a little bit, and then I came back in and mulched, but I have not covered the top of the root balls. The root balls, you can still see the top of the root balls just like they were in the container. I use triple shredded hardwood mulch. You can use pine bark mulch or pine bark nuggets or pine straw or whatever your preferred mulch is. Just don't mulch up on the stems and bury them too deep in it. And again, leave them a little bit elevated. And the pH adjustment is the main thing. And like I say, a whole series of videos on blueberries if you'd like more information. These varieties are from the Southern Living Plant Collection. These two are Takes the Cake and Bless Your Heart. These are rabbit eye blueberries that I've planted here. Again, appropriate for my zone. Another thing that's very, very important to find out what blueberries are appropriate to grow in your area. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for upcoming content.